While Kate is doing that, I will introduce myself. So my name is Alicia. I am with the National Ecological Observatory Network. For anyone that is not familiar with NEON, we are entirely NSF funded. We have 81 field sites across the country, and we're providing open access data at all of those different field sites. We're collecting all kinds of data, terrestrial, aquatic, observational, instrumental data, so a pretty broad array. So if you have any questions specific about some of the data that we've been collecting, please reach out. But I'm a member of our education and engagement team, and that is one of the reasons I primarily got involved on this INCLUDES project. And it was one of the projects that was funded by the Dear Colleague letter that came out to fund INCLUDES conferences. So if you want to go to the next slide, Kate. So we received funding to host this conference. We actually received twice as many applications to attend than we could accommodate. But the conference was specifically focused on examining diversity, equity, and inclusion in data science and environmental science fields. And we had a little over 100 people participate in the conference. And it was decided when the conference ended that we were all going to kind of continue to work together under this umbrella organization that we're calling the Environmental Data Science Inclusion Network. So you can go to the next slide. So I wanted to provide a little bit of background as to why we thought having this conference was important. Similar to the INCLUDES program within NSF, big data or harnessing the big data revolution is also another one of NSF's big ideas. So we're seeing a growth in big data within the field of ecology as well. And again, something that NEON has been highly engaged in. We also feel that analyses that are being done on these data and the policies that are driven by them can have profound environmental and societal implications. So we really wanted to bring together practitioners, researchers, educators, evaluators, employers, just about everyone that could come and bring diverse perspectives to this conversation to talk about how can we work towards a more inclusive field, because we want to be sure that the field is reflecting the diversity of the communities that it's serving. So next. So we ended up having 13 collaborating organizations help support the conference. I think that that was a really great way to make sure that all of these different activities that are already ongoing are aware of each other's efforts. We realized that there were a lot of great things already happening out there in this space. And so a lot of reason for bringing everyone together was to make sure that everyone was aware of those activities, and also how can we better work together moving forward. But based on the feedback that we've received from the conference, we're still working on the conference proceedings report that's not yet available, but we got a lot of great feedback on the event, and so we're excited about continuing to kind of keep the motivation from it ongoing. So next. So we actually, for our conference, we did an unconference format, which basically allows the attendees to identify the topics that they're interested in talking about. So we ended up having 43 breakout sessions over 3 days. And there were some common themes that came out of those breakout sessions. So the next 2 slides are some of those areas. So thinking about the broader INCLUDES network, I think if anyone has some expertise in some of these different areas, this may be a really great way for us to kind of have some conversations and maybe think about how we can support one another. So the first one was accessibility. So how do we develop data science training programs and tools to make them more accessible? Allies, so allies need training and tools to act with and for their colleagues to ensure a safe space for all of their peers. There were a lot of discussions surrounding data ethics, that they need to be continuously promoted in all aspects of data collection, distribution, analysis, and dissemination. And then in terms of training, thinking about how to make these training curricula that are being developed culturally and socially relevant to the diverse students that we are educating. So the next slide. Cultural change, there was a lot of discussion about how to make cultural change at the higher levels of some of these different organizations. Providing professional development to instructors and leaders of programs to make sure they're following best practices of inclusive pedagogy and universal design. We had just a broad, conversation about recruitment and retention of minorities in these fields. And then how do we make data science relevant to these different communities as we are having these conversations. So the next slide. So I kind of just wanted to talk a little bit, since the conference has ended, we had 7 working groups that developed from the conference, and they've kind of continued working towards different activities. But one of those has been in partnership with QUBES, and you'll hear from Carrie Diaz-Eaton here in a little bit about hearing more about QUBES. But we have started a fellows program, and this fellows program is specifically looking at curating open educational resources that do follow best practices of inclusive pedagogy and universal design, but also are related to data science specifically. And we have several of the fellows on the call today, so I wanted to have each of them introduce themselves so that you guys would know a little bit more about the work that they're doing. So I'll start with Elizabeth. Can you introduce yourself briefly?
Hi, excuse me, I'm coughing. I'm Elizabeth Suddeth. I'm at Georgia Gwinnett College in suburban Atlanta, where I teach biology and environmental science. And I guess just say a little bit about, should I say a little bit of what I'm doing as a fellow? Is that?
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
So I've sort of volunteered to be kind of the host on our website, which I think Carrie's going to tell you more about our site in a minute. And then also thinking about how to promote our online community in the future and being involved in our post-conference workshop, hopefully.
Great. Nate, can you go next?
Sure. Hi, I'm Nate Emory. I'm a postdoc at Michigan State University in plant biology and biology education research. And kind of I don't want to say the role, but like my goals as a fellow are to try and either generate or bring resources that we are all familiar with because we actually care about this stuff to the folks who aren't aware that they care about this stuff. So specifically thinking about my own colleagues in ecology and evolution or plant biology who aren't necessarily reading CB LSE or other journals that are working and publishing on this kind of work. So trying to go to the audience as opposed to trying to encourage the audience to come to us.
Great. Sharon, do you want to go next?
Great, thank you. My name is Sharon Rivera. I am at Tacoma Community College in Tacoma, Washington. I'm a chemistry instructor, but my main goal is as the Mathematics, Engineering, Science Achievement Program Director. We call it the MESA program. And our goal is to support underrepresented and minoritized students in STEM to succeed and get their bachelor's degree at a transfer institution. So we work with a lot of faculty and we work with a lot of program support on campus to ensure open education materials, to share best practices in pedagogy and inclusion in the classroom and in their programs. So that's what I do on a daily basis, and that's what we do. That's what I've been hoping to achieve here with the Fellows program.
Great, thanks, Sharon. Drew, I think you may be the last one.
Right, folks, I haven't learned the keystroke yet to unmute. So I'm Andrew Hazley. I'm actually currently unaffiliated, except that I'm a fellow with EDSIN right now, and I'm also part managing a program that is being started by BioQuest, which is another organization that does a lot with undergraduate biology education, to launch a formal UDL initiative through that. I finished a postdoc in April and followed a spouse to Minnesota to take a job, and I'm job hunting now. So what I'm doing a couple of things with EDSIN. One of the thing, as a fellow, one of the things is that they don't even all know this yet, but I'm interested in actually trying to bring this Universal Design for Learning initiative with BioQuest together with the Build site. I think the Build site that you're going to see in a second is a good place to start trying to host resources, get people talking about resources, so that folks who actually want to do inclusion, who want to do universal design for learning, have an easy place to go find it, and also go argue about it, which is productive. I should also say that one of the things that brought me to the EDSIN community in the first place, full disclosure, I was invited to give a talk at that conference. But the reason I said yes is because what was unique to me was that it was a conference that was actually trying to, and as much as possible, cover all the facets of diversity and inclusion and equity. You know, trying to bring together a bunch of different things, because I had gotten really tired of seeing a conference about increasing racial and ethnic diversity, and then a different conference about accessibility stuff, because that's somehow special and different. And then a whole different conference on, you know, inclusive pedagogy in general. And it was nice to actually see someone trying to get everybody in the same room together and talk about the common things and also talk about the different things. So that's why I was part of it, and that's why I've sort of lended what little I can on the UDL front to the Fellows Initiative.
Great, thanks, Drew. And Karen, I know you're not officially a fellow, but I want to give you an opportunity to introduce yourself as well, since you didn't at the beginning, and you've been supporting our Fellows program.
Sure, thank you. I'm Karen Cangelosi. I'm a professor of biology at Keene State, and I've been lately in my long career been working on incorporating open educational resources and particularly open pedagogical practices into my teaching. And I'm really interested in what the QUBES folks and the EDSIN Fellows are up to with respect to creating open educational resources, and in particular into transforming our pedagogical practices in biology and data science, and what OER has to bring to that. So.
Great, thanks, Karen. And did I miss anyone? I think I got everyone, but I just want to double check. Okay, great. I just had a few other things I wanted to mention that we are currently working on as EDSIN, in case there are opportunities for anyone on the call that might be attending or interested in engaging in these activities. But we're going to have a cohort of about probably around 12 people that are attending the SACNAS conference in Hawaii that's occurring in the fall. So that's the Society for the Advancement of Chicanos and Native Americans in Science. So if there is anyone on the call that's interested in having some in-person conversations, definitely reach out, and I can connect you with everyone that will be there. We also have been working on putting together a post-conference workshop in the spring. We have just recently confirmed with Spelman College that we will be hosting that in March, the end of March. I probably should have the exact dates. I'll put some information on the Includes program. That just happened like today. So I'll get that out. But if you are interested in these issues, that's definitely going to be a time that we're going to be coming together and really talking about next steps and looking at, you know, what is the best way for us to proceed to make sure that we can make the most impact in this area. And then we can talk about this a little bit more during the chat time, but we have been looking into some different proposal opportunities, like research coordination networks. There's another proposal opportunity right now out. Even there's one with the Includes program for, what is it called, Kate? Is it, I think it's a planning call.
Yep.
So looking at that, and then there are some other opportunities. So we've kind of been exploring, if you do see some intersection between some of the work that you're doing and what we're doing, we would love to chat with you more about that. And again, we can talk about that a little bit more during the discussion time. So can you go to the next slide, Kate? So with this, we definitely want to invite everyone on the call that's not already a part of EDSIN to join our group. Carrie Diaz-Eaton is going to now talk about basically the website that we've been using to structure our collaborations, not just at the conference, but also with the Fellows program. So I'm going to turn it over to her now and have her introduce herself.
Hi, I'm Carrie Diaz-Eaton, and I have a couple of roles with the EDSIN.
Carrie, your voice is breaking up really bad.
Oh, I'm gonna stop my video. Maybe that'll help. Is that better?
No, it's still not doing well.
Reverberating.
So,
Carrie, one option is you could call in on the phone.
yeah, that just might take a minute. So, maybe Alicia, you want to show folks around the EDSIN website while I call in, and then I can take over.
Alicia, how about I pull up the website and you can start with the just kind of general overview as Carrie gets connected. Does that work? Okay, great. Alicia, you definitely way to step up and share your screen and all of your tabs. One note: you are on mute.
Sorry about that. Can you guys see the website now? Okay, great.
Yeah.
So QUBES is a platform that can really help facilitate the sharing of resources within a community, and it's also the system that we used for our conference. So basically, the way QUBES was developed is that it allows different groups to create their own space on this platform. And then there are various features that you can basically add to the site. So as you set it up, it asks you if you want it to be able to do this or that. And so this is basically showing you the website for the network, but it's also where we had all of the information for our conference. So if I click on the conference button here to the right, you'll see we had our schedule here, all of the bios for our presenters and their abstracts. So we actually included all of this information primarily on the website as opposed to having like packet materials that we handed out to all of our attendees. We had information on the conference venue, how you could participate remotely. We actually live streamed and closed captioned the live streaming of the conference so that folks that could not attend, as I had mentioned before, we had twice as many people apply to attend than we could accommodate. So this was a way to allow some level of engagement if you weren't able to be there in person. Different information. Oh, I'm sorry?
I'm back.
Okay, you might want to take over. Yep.
No, it's good. No, I appreciate it. Thank you for filling in and jumping in.
I'll stop sharing my screen and you can share yours.
Yeah, then I'll do it. Yeah. But you did a lot of the spiel, so I appreciate it. Yeah, so
you should be able to share now, Carrie.
Okay. So QUBES came into this in a couple of different ways. One is just somebody who is very much concerned with the discourse around shaping
emerging education fronts. And then the second is as a subcontractor to help provide services for the INCLUDES project. And so Alicia was pointing out a lot of the kinds of information that was available on the website. I do want to point out also that the web services we provide are also interactive. So we do have forum areas and other things that were used in order to facilitate discussion before and even after the conference. So for example, upcoming opportunities have still been a source of activity after the conference. And introductions were actually quite active prior to the conference, which really helps people identify connections beforehand. We also have been working in addition to the conference and the conference schedule. Another unusual tab you might notice is this Open Education Fellows, and that really describes the entire collaborative program between EDSIN and QUBES that Alicia mentioned, and the fellows that are here introduce themselves. So this is a bit of a kind of a pilot, I guess you could say, pilot program. We really wanted to continue the conversation, but in particular, QUBES is an open education entity, really thinking about how do we open the conversation, how do we make the conversation about education accessible, how do we get resources to people. What we decided to do was to try to bring leadership forward from the EDSIN community, both those that could make it to the conference and folks who were unable to make it to the conference. And so we had an open call for fellows who would engage with us really deeply around issues of open education, data science education, environmental education, equity, inclusion, universal design for learning, and had a lot of really wonderful conversations focused around that. And as part of this fellows program, in addition to the more facilitated discussions early on around this space, their project was to think about what would the ideal space for this conversation look like or feel like or be called or branded. And we actually decided to make a space that was not EDSIN exclusive, but represents just a broad group of folks committed to universal design for learning and inclusive pedagogy principles, and the synthesis of those principles, as Drew hinted at earlier. And so this site, builds.cubeshub.org, was just introduced just a couple weeks ago. This is very new, but we're excited to share it with you today. And it builds off our same cyber infrastructure as the others, but you don't need to have an account to get at to access resources. You can find, right now we don't have the resources up there yet because it's brand new, but we have been looking at uploading them. Part of what we're doing is QUBES has made a commitment to include as part of its open education submission fields and tagging fields for resources related to inclusion and universal design for learning. We went back and forth about whether this was something specific to a build project. For example, we work with a bioinformatics learning group, and they have particular competencies associated with bioinformatics that are unique to their resources and only show up if you're submitting a resource for them. But this, we felt, was more important and transcended any particular individual project. So it's really, even though this is a kind of spin-off of EDSIN, I feel like this collaboration has actually helped QUBES grow as well, which has been really great. The fellows for for this year, we had several of them on the call, but I do want to point out that Ellen and Caitlin could not be here today, but they are also fellows, and we've had a number of other folks really helpful and important in helping us develop this program. From here, the fellows, as you may have heard earlier, are each embarking on one of their individual projects that they've identified are consistent with their own personal and professional trajectories. And so they'll be working for the next few months on their individual projects with some support, also administrative and financial, from our Includes grant.
Thanks,
Alicia,
Carrie.
is there anything else?
I think that's good. I think we want to have enough time to open up questions from everyone that's on the call. Sorry, everyone, we had that little hiccup there, but it seemed to work out.
Yeah, it looks great. So yeah, I invite anyone on the phone. You can either unmute yourself if you have a question for anyone on the call, or find that chat box and post your question. And as we kind of wait a second, Alicia, do you want to talk a little bit about some of the collaboration around some of the research and the planning grants? Were there any thoughts that you had up top of mind to think about or propose to this group?
Yeah, we're kind of in the preliminary stages right now of just trying to kind of figure out what we may propose for that. All the different opportunities that we have looked at are not research focused. They're within NSF's funding that's available for like developing networks specifically. And so even though we have like an official network name, we're definitely not really, we're very much at the very beginning of kind of pulling all of this together. The Builds Fellowship Program specifically has really focused on a certain aspect of what was discussed at the conference with open education resources and undergraduate education, but a lot of the discussions too are a lot broader. So there are a lot of other areas that we have been engaging with different people within the community that bring expertise in other areas that were addressed and that I listed in those couple of slides. So again, it's still very much kind of a conversation, but a lot of it is hoping to find some additional funds to bring everyone together to better determine how we want to work as a network. And then specifically within the Includes program, looking at collective impact and how we can work together to see how we are making change collectively across the group.
Great. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Just want to give anyone an opportunity to ask a question or learn a little bit more. You can unmute at the bottom of your screen where the little phone icon is. We're all learning that really well. I have a question. So I've been looking at your network site and have talked a lot with you, Alicia, and I was wondering if you could talk a little bit more about who makes up your network, who you know, who's included, who's kind of the kind of key audience of those that are currently involved, or maybe where you're thinking about bringing on new members.
Everyone. I mean, I hate to say it that way, but we felt for it to be, well, an inclusive conversation, but also we wanted to bring different perspectives. And so one of the areas where we were really trying to get more people as part of the conference and also bringing them into the community is the private sector. So folks that are hiring, especially those hiring for individuals that have those data science skills. And so we're thinking about, you know, folks going through K through 12, then they go to undergrad, then they, you know, go into their careers, and just thinking about there needs to be a discussion across that entire pipeline to make sure that we're identifying the barriers that exist at each point in someone's basically getting aware of some of these opportunities, and then increasing their interest, and then how do we basically support development of that from that starting point. And so it really required expertise from all of these different groups with all these different perspectives. I should say, and this may be just the nature of it being an NSF focus, we really tried to reach out in terms of recruitment, but a lot of folks that did apply were from colleges and universities. But we've been doing a lot to try to bring in, again, other groups outside of that. And I don't know if Carrie or Drew or some of the others that participated had any thoughts about that as well, but.
I'm going to channel a colleague of mine who said that the person who lives exactly at the intersection of good, inclusive, universal practices and data science and environmental or ecological science is sort of a unicorn. And so we tried to make it really clear that almost none of us are experts in all of those things, and that we invited folks who were experts in one or more, or at least had interest, investment in all of those things. And so I think that was an ethos of learning and openness, and that I think followed through the conference itself. And so there were some folks there who were strictly data science practitioners that weren't necessarily educators, or folks that were evaluators that maybe didn't know a lot about the field of environmental data science. Certainly for me and my background as a sort of computational biologist who's now in STEM education, actually I didn't know very much about sort of the environmental research and some of the business partners and other kinds of players in the network. So I think it was a lot of learning from all sectors, and there are actually a good contingent of computational biologists that weren't necessarily in evolution. And I kind of want to point that out too, because they also, even though maybe the ecology and environmental piece wasn't the right match in that way, they felt like there just wasn't a place, broadly speaking, to have these discussions, even in biology, that were really centered in thinking about issues of inclusion moving forward.
I think, just to add a little bit, I think that a phrase that's helpful in answering Kate's initial question is a network of networks, which can kind of at first glance sound like lack of focus, but I think there actually is a lot of focus. I think what I saw happening at the conference and what I'm hearing happening as we go, and even the OEC fellows kind of uniting around this idea of bringing universal design and inclusive pedagogy together, worlds that often get researched apart. I think a lot of this is trying to de-silo a lot of that and make sure that everybody can speak a similar language, which has been really challenging.
That was said perfectly, Drew. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Well, I want to say, yeah, go ahead. I was going to say we have we have a couple more minutes for another comment before we wrap. So sorry, I didn't mean to talk over anyone.
Sharon wanted to add anything to that. She was also at the conference.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you, Carrie. I think it was Carrie.
I was just asking if Sharon wanted to add anything or not, or anybody else who was at the conference.
Thanks, Carrie. Sorry, I didn't hear you either. So that was, thank you, Alicia, for saying something. The conference experience for me was one of the better conferences that I've been to. It was really a space that we were able to connect around how we provide for our students and at the same time support each other while we learn and try new things. So it was a really valuable experience for me. And I'm still having conversations with people that I met from that conference, even outside of this EDSIN Open Education Fellows work.
Great. Well, thank you all. Alicia, thank you for putting your email. I was going to ask you to do that. So you were thinking along the same lines. I encourage those of you on the call to check out their website, explore the network, reach out to this team if you have questions about joining. It sounds as if it's open network and you are extending the invite to get involved, and people can easily join the network. It's very easy. I think you just create a password and you're in, and then and we'll look forward to seeing more from the Builds network as that gets populated and those resources are made available. So thanks to you all for joining, and I really appreciate that all of you fellows were able to find the time to join us today too. It's great to hear about your work and how you're continuing to do this work even beyond this conference and thinking about a future event. In addition to I want to plug a few things. So in addition to SACNAS, if you are attending SACNAS or want to learn more, I definitely encourage you to reach out to the team that's planning on a face-to-face meeting, because we know how great that is to always get together face-to-face. There's also the Champion for Change, which is the Collective Impact Forum Backbone Conference coming up. The INCLUDES team will be there. So if you're thinking about attending that, reach out to me or the INCLUDES team to learn more so we can connect there. And we have a couple upcoming events that I want to highlight. So as you all know, we have our INCLUDES network website. Drew, speaking of networks, I think we're networks of networks of networks. So please do make sure that you check out that site. If you're new to it or new to INCLUDES, you can join us for an office hours just to learn more about how to get involved. And then we have a webinar coming up at the end of the month around culturally responsive practices. This is going to be featuring 3 different INCLUDES projects, talking about their work and how they're kind of developing and implementing culturally responsive programs. So I think it's going to be an excellent event. And then I just want to invite you all, these web chats are intended to help connect you all to each other and to share your resources and to share work you're doing and ways to collaborate. So if you have an idea for a web chat and you would like to collaborate with the Hub, I invite you to email us. So the email is here, NSF INCLUDES Hub at SRI. Really design these events so that they're responsive to the ways in which the INCLUDES network members want to connect. And it's great to connect with you all. And I really appreciate the EDSIN's team for bringing this idea to me and to the Hub, and Alicia for all of your responsiveness and great planning that we were able to put this together and have your full team mostly represented today. So thanks for that. And with that, look for more information. We'll share the recording and the materials online, and people will get an email. So thanks all for joining today.
Great. Thanks all.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.